7 bone-chilling, true, deep woods horror stories that haunt your nights forever. The sun had barely dipped below the horizon, but shadows stretched deep into the woods like fingers grasping at something unseen. In those darkened corners, mysteries festered. Legends whispered of blood-chilling encounters, lurking horrors that made the trees seem alive and hungry. The ground felt wrong, as if the earth itself had secrets too dark to reveal. Every year, adventurers armed with courage, or maybe just curiosity, ventured into the looming embrace of ancient trees. They returned with murmurs of things moving just outside their sight, eyes peering from behind bark and leaves, a soft rustle that sent shivers down their spines. Some swore they heard laughter, not the joyful kind, but something taunting, something utterly wrong. One by one, they shared tales that made your skin crawl. There was the story of the lost hiker, who found not his way back, but an eerie clearing where tall grass whispered warning, and the haunting echoes of children playing rang out. Only, there were no children. Just the sound of something inhuman mimicking joy, waiting for nightfall. Then there was the tale of the lone camper who claimed he befriended a ghost. It was just an old trapper, he said, but when the eerie glow of an unseen fire flickered at the edge of the campsite, he felt the fear creep into his bones. You could practically feel their fear creeping up your own back, right? Like a cold hand resting on your shoulder. But in those woods, the rules of fear twisted. The only sure thing was the oppressive silence that followed the tales, broken only by snapping twigs, as if the very woods were listening and breathing. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But the most disturbing tale was of the Watchers. Some claim they saw them figures peeking from behind trees, perfectly still, observing. When night fell, the stories grew darker. People disappeared without a trace, and the townsfolk would nod knowingly. The woods had swallowed them whole. A shiver ran through the gathered listeners, hearts beating faster as they recalled the stories that had happened only days before. What truly lay within those woods? What was watching, waiting silently in the dark? The night grew heavy with unanswered questions, and fear gripped every corner of their minds. As they ventured deeper into the unknown, breathing became a chore, the very air electric with anticipation. Were the stories real? Were the woods really alive? The trees swayed ominously, almost as if they were moving to a beat, pulling deeper into their embrace. And so, the group stood on the edge of an unsettling adventure. A split-second decision that would lead them to forgotten truths or something far worse. What would they find if they dared to cross that threshold into unfathomable darkness? The forest was a cathedral of shadows, and the air was thick with 100 unsaid words. The group hesitated at the precipice, glancing among each other with apprehensive eyes. The chill was more than just the evening air. It felt alive, pressing in around them, urging them to either advance or retreat. "Do you hear that?" whispered a voice, fragile and quaking. They all strained to listen, trying to pierce the silence, but the woods swallowed their attempts to sense. Then, faintly, like the distant echoes of a nightmare, came laughter. Childlike, it was innocent and mischievous. But deep down, they all felt a nagging dread, like a stone settling in their stomachs. Against the force of their fear, they stepped forward together, almost instinctively, seeking safety in numbers. The trees loomed above, tall and stoic, their twisted branches clawing at the darkening sky. Each step felt heavy, and the ground beneath their feet felt too soft, like stepping onto a living thing rather than solid earth. "Maybe we should turn back," Sarah voiced, but her words were lost to the forest. No one wanted to admit their growing anxiety, yet the uncertainty hung in the air like a noose. Suddenly, they stumbled upon the clearing the lost hiker had frequented. It was just as the tales described, tall grasses swaying ever so gently, whispering warnings that they didn't understand. In the center of the clearing, A decayed wooden swing hung eerily from a lone tree, creaking softly as if disturbed. The sickening sweetness of decay wafted through the air, and just above that, a lingering scent of smoke, like an unseen fire long extinguished. "What is this place?" Josh mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. "An echo of the past, perhaps," Rachel breathed, glancing nervously around. The stories flooded back to each of them, stories of children playing, only to vanish like smoke when adults approached. As they stood there, the laughter returned, louder now, ringing off the trees. Not just children, but something mocking, weaving danger into the air they breathed. A shape flickered in the corner of Samantha's vision, just a shadow darting between the trees, too quick to hold on to. Her heart raced. "Did you see that?" "See what?" Josh asked, his bravado wavering as he scanned the darkness. But before anyone could respond, the clearing erupted into chaos. The swing began to sway violently, as if propelled by unseen hands. The laughter warped into a high-pitched screech, sending a jolt through all of them. They stood frozen, fear paralyzed every limb. Just then, the chilling realization hit them they weren't alone. "Run!" Sarah screamed, an instinctive shout that broke the spell. The group turned, sprinting into the maze of trees, the laughter morphing into a cacophony of hungry voices, taunting them, drawing them back into the clearing. Branches whipped against their skin, but they pushed forward, the darkness clawing at their heels. They could hear it, the sound of branches snapping, footsteps that weren't their own, trailing just behind. As they rushed deeper into the woods, the feeling of being hunted wrapped around them like a suffocating cloak. With every frantic step, they could hear it clearer. Something was watching, something was waiting. But as they forged on, unsure of what lay ahead, the trees closed in tighter around them, branches mingling like arms trying to trap them in their embrace. "Where do we go?" Rachel gasped, panic crawling up her throat. "Over there, we follow the stream." Josh pointed, and without waiting for a response, they veered toward the sound of rushing water. But was it a way out, or another trap? In the back of their minds, they all knew the woods were alive with a hunger they couldn't comprehend. As the shadows deepened around them, they took one last look behind, and in that moment, something or someone moved just beyond the trees, eyes glistening with predatory intent. What would they face if they reached the stream? Friends or foes? The true nature of the watchers loomed in the darkness, and soon they would find out. The water gurgled ahead, a deceptive promise of escape. They sprinted towards it, legs heavy with dread, lungs burning in the chill air. As they ran, Sarah shouted, "Keep moving. Don't look back." But the laughter, a haunting, sinister sound, seeped into the very marrow of their bones, making it nearly impossible to resist the urge to glance over their shoulders. Branches clawed at their skin, and the shadows felt like fingers, grasping, trying to pull them into the dark embrace of the forest. Rachel stumbled, her foot catching on an uprooted root. Time seemed to tick in slow motion as she crashed to the ground. "Rachel!" Josh yelled, his heart pounding as he skidded to a stop. "No!" she cried, scrambling to her feet. "Go!" I can't," but there was no time. The laughter crescendoed, invasive and mocking, filling the air with a chaotic rhythm. Unseen, the forest closed ranks around them, plunging them into deeper darkness. "Grab her! We can't leave anyone behind," Samantha urged, her voice a frantic whisper. With determination, they engulfed Rachel in a quick embrace, pulling her along as they bolted again. Fear fueled their speed, propelling them forward like arrows shot into the night. As they charged, the stream's soothing sound began to amplify. The water, sparkling faintly in the fading light, promised solace, a beacon against the terror of the woods. Yet something deep within told them that water could drown just as easily as it could refresh. "No, this way." Josh pointed to a narrow path alongside the stream, one that veered off the main flow, deeper into the thicket where the light hardly reached. The others hesitated, but the cacophony behind them grew insistent. With no other choice, they plunged down the path, heartbeats loud enough to mask the murmurs creeping through the underbrush. The laughter transformed, a chorus of disembodied voices threading through the trees. It felt close, intimate, like lost children whispering secrets just beyond reach. "Someone there," Rachel gasped, her breath fogging in the chilled air. She stopped suddenly, eyes wide. "What?" Samantha asked, glancing nervously into the darkness. Rachel raised a trembling finger, pointing towards a figure standing just beyond the thicket. Its silhouette was indistinct, shrouded in shadows, but the glint of wide, shining eyes reflected the dying light. It stood motionless, as if waiting for them to approach. Something about it felt wrong, utterly, bone-chillingly wrong. "There's nothing there," Josh insisted, trying to break the fear thickening the air around them. Yet when he looked again, the figure swayed slightly, almost beckoning with a hand that was not quite human. The air felt electric, charged with something indescribable. "Let us keep moving," Samantha urged again, but her conviction faltered against the growing unease. Without warning, the laughter morphed into ear-splitting shrieks. The group stumbled, disoriented, and began to backtrack. But the forest had shifted. The path they had taken now loomed unfamiliar and twisted. "What happened to it?" Sarah's voice cracked, fear spilling over. "It was right here. Maybe it's just a trick," Josh shouted, anger spilling over his fear. "We have to find another way." "We can't." The figure darted forward, moving too quickly for any of them to react. Shadows sprang to life, turning into long, frantic fingers that grasped at their clothes as they turned to flee. The chase resumed, panic flaring anew in their chests. As they raced, the shrieking became an overwhelming symphony of chaos, drowning out their thoughts. They were trapped, caught in the relentless grasp of the dark, the unknown clawing at their heels. They skidded to the stream's edge, but there was no respite. The water surged, dark and twisted, as shapes shifted underneath the surface, gliding like whispers stolen from dreams. "Now what?" Rachel gasped, pressing her back against a cold, wet tree trunk. They scanned the horizon for any sign of hope, but it was gone. Just ahead, something gleamed beneath the water, a pale light, beckoning them forward. Could it lead to freedom, or was it just another trap waiting to ensnare them? The decision loomed before them, heavy and suffocating. And then came the laughter again, sharper, closer, like an ice pick piercing through their courage. "Do we go in?" Sarah stammered, heart racing. But shadows grew into shapes, dancing at the edge of their vision. They were losing time. "Someone make a choice." "We have to decide now," Josh demanded, the words echoing like thunder in the stillness. The moment hung, taut in the air, as darkness congealed around them. What lay beneath their salvation or damnation? The answer waited just out of reach, shrouded in the deep, murky depths. Rachel's heart raced as time seemed to slow, the laughter hammering in her ears like a wild drum. Shadows twisted around them, as if the trees themselves were alive, conspiring to clutch at their limbs and draw them into the dark abyss. The cold water gurgled behind her, taunting uncertainty into her already frayed nerves. "Look!" Samantha yelled, pointing toward the gleaming light underwater. "What if it's a way out? Or what if it's a lie?" Josh shot back, his frustration boiling over. "We can't just jump into the water. We don't know what's down there. We don't know what's up here, either," Sarah screamed, and the urgency in her voice struck a chord. The laughter intensified, a chorus rising from unseen masses, echoing wicked joy. Rachel felt tightly wound, a spring ready to snap. "We have to decide. Either we trust the water, or we're sitting ducks here." With the screams reverberating in their minds, they were all at a breaking point. Each heartbeat drummed out a countdown. An unseen presence loomed closer, lurking within the trees, feeding off their fear, feeding off their indecision. Just as Rachel opened her mouth to speak, a piercing shriek cut through the night, sending them all stumbling backward. "Now, go! Into the water!" Rachel shouted. Without waiting for an answer, she lunged forward, feet splashing into the icy stream. The shock of the cold sent ripples through her body, sparking adrenaline as she grabbed at the smooth stones beneath. "Rachel!" Josh called, panic lacing his tone. But her resolve was steel now. The water embraced her, cold and welcoming, pushing against her legs. She turned back just as Josh plunged in beside her, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. Samantha and Sarah followed close behind, the water drawing them into its depths as they submerged. The laughter faded slightly above them, muffled and distant. They swam, driven by instinct through the swirling darkness. Something lurked below. Rachel felt it. pulsating and alive. The water shifted around them, the current stronger than expected. It was no longer a feeling of liberation. Now it felt like a predator circling prey. "Keep swimming," Josh shouted, his voice submerged within the rushing water. Rachel kicked harder, feeling the weight of every breath, every stroke. But beneath her, shadows loomed, flitting in and out of her vision like fish, though these were no ordinary fish. They glinted menacingly, eyes like lanterns, cold and fixed on her. Sarah's panic surged. "I can't, there's something here." Her voice echoed in Rachel's mind, spiraling into terror. The current grew stronger, dragging them apart. Suddenly, Rachel broke the surface, gasping for air. Sam and Josh surfaced nearby, wide-eyed and frantic. Sarah was not with them. "Where's Sarah?" Rachel blurted out, looking frantically for her friend. "Stay together," Josh yelled, scanning the murky line where shadows melded into darkness. "We can't lose each other." Rachel started, but then felt a grip on her ankle, cold and unrelenting. Panic coursed through her before she realized it was only the water pulling her down. She kicked free and turned, rejoining Josh and Samantha. "Where do we go?" Samantha gasped, shivering violently. The water swirled, currents swirling around their legs like frantic dancers. Whatever awaited them in the darkness loomed larger with every second. But then, from the deep, a soft light flickered, a glimmer of hope or malevolence. It pulsed invitingly, coaxing them closer. "We have to look," Rachel said, biting back her fear. "Dangerous," Josh urged, but the call was too enticing. The shadowy presence that enclosed them twisted, morphing into forms Rachel couldn't discern. Tentacles? Arms? Samantha began to pull away. "We can't. It's a trap." But the light glimmered, a whisper calling them home. Suddenly, the shrieking laughter exploded above the surface, reverberating through the water, threatening to swallow them whole. The decision stood before them again: dive deeper into the unknown, or turn and face the chaos that chased them. As the laughter crescendoed into a terrifying roar, a strange figure surfaced nearby, slipping through the water with graceful, eerie familiarity. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "Who? What is that?" She turned to the others, but the chill of new terror froze her as she caught sight of their faces, pale, wide-eyed, frozen in fear. And then came the voice from the shadow, cold and mocking. "You should have stayed in the dark. What did it want? What would they do now?" The air turned electric. Whatever was underneath, it knew their fears, playing them like strings on a violin. The depths trembled, leaving them with one question: what awaited them beneath the surface? The figure broke through the water's surface, glistening like glass under the faint glow above. Rachel squinted, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum, each beat a reminder of the danger creeping closer. It was almost human, a woman, with dark hair flowing around her like seaweed. But that wasn't what sent chills down Rachel's spine. It was her eyes, deep, empty voids that seemed to strip away any warmth left in the world. "Get back!" screamed Samantha, voice cracking with panic. "That thing is not real." But the creature didn't attack. Instead, she smiled, a wide, eerie grin that sent a shudder down Rachel's spine. "Come closer," the apparition beckoned, her voice silky smooth, yet laced with an unsettling edge. "I can show you freedom." "Freedom?" Josh echoed, bewildered, his fierce protective facade cracking under the weight of the mysterious allure. "Yes, dear boy." The figure's voice drew closer, tendrils of water swirling around her as if she commanded the very elements. "If you join me, your fears will no longer haunt you. Leave them behind. Just dive with me into the light." Rachel felt a pull, a magnetism in the depths of the water threatening to ensnare her. Freedom? Could it be real? She looked at Josh and Samantha, their faces glowing with uncertainty and the sting of fear. "No," Rachel shouted over the cacophony of laughter and echoed whispers that rang in her ears. "We can't trust her." But doubt began to seep into her mind. What if this was the answer? What if they were fated to drown in this nightmare forever? The laughter above burrowed into her skull, amplifying her anguish. "Rachel," Josh urged, closing the distance between them. "Focus. We have to figure out what's real. We can't split up." "Yeah," Samantha added, her voice shaking. "We stick together. No more distractions. Look around us." Rachel shouted, desperate to instill a sense of urgency. This ISNTA game. Whatever that is, it's waiting for us to make a mistake. The specter's amusement had transformed into annoyance, her smile faltering as the shadows below writhed, reaching for them, seeping from the depths like a living nightmare. Darkness churned, and Rachel felt that pull intensify, pulling at her very core. "Join me," the woman sang again, as a current surged forward, an unseen force thrusting Rachel back. Suddenly the surface throbbed with the energy of a pounding heart, and Rachel clung to Josh and Samantha. But the moment held them in stillness, a perfect breach against the chaos surrounding them. "Fight it. You're stronger than this," Josh yelled, his voice a beacon piercing through the torment. The woman frowned, her voice taking on an edge of desperation. "You think you can escape? You will regret this choice." Then came a roar that drowned out all sound. The laughter morphed into screams, sinister and echoing, as if the forest itself were alive with malevolence. Rachel shut her eyes, every fiber of her being urging her to escape, to overcome whatever power this dark force held over them. "Let us swim. Now," she shouted, suddenly fueled by raw adrenaline. Together they propelled toward the flickering light, hands clenched, hearts racing as the echo of fury chased them. But as they neared the shimmering pulse, it flickered. Was it retreating? In the clutches of the chaos, Rachel glanced back at the dark figure, its face twisted in rage, eyes narrowing to slits. "Don't look back," Josh yelled, tugging her forward. They surged ahead, dragging Samantha along. The water thickened with the weight of their fears and the shadows still looming all around them. The frantic thrum of the creature's laughter clung to them, wrapping tighter than the water, drowning out reason and hope. Rachel flicked her gaze behind them one last time. The figure, once seductive, now twisted in a visceral snarl, the reflection of what they all feared most, being unable to escape their nightmares. Suddenly, the water surged and coiled around their legs, a violent grip dragging them back. They were so close to the light, but as the shadows whipped against her body, pulling her towards the depths. One last thought struck. What if the light was just as dangerous? The pulse of the water darkened, promising oblivion. In that moment, which felt unending, Rachel thought she wouldn't let herself drown. But as she fought against the current, Rachel heard the voice call out again, this time softer, quieter. "You cannot resist forever." With one last desperate push, she yelled, "Swim." As everything began to blink, the shadows swallowing the light. What lay ahead? Further into the depths? Would they succumb to the unknown, or discover the truth that awaited them beneath the surface? The current tugged at them with a merciless grip, yanking Rachel beneath the surface. Panic surged as she kicked and clawed at the water, heart pounding like thunder in her chest. "Keep swimming," she gasped out, the words barely escaping her lips as her lungs burned for air. Samantha's face was set in determination, but Rachel caught a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Josh was there, close beside her, every muscle strained in fight or flight. They surged toward that glimmer, a beacon of hope illuminating the dark chaos, but it flickered still, as if testing their resolve. "Look, it's right there," Rachel yelled, feeling a surge of adrenaline as the light beckoned them closer. But with every stroke, the shadows lashed out, slashing at their feet like claws dragging them toward an unseen fate. "Don't lose it," Josh shouted, his voice strained, urgency edging their movements. But even as they propelled themselves forward, the water churned violently, sending waves crashing around them, echoing the woman's chilling laughter. "Rachel," Samantha's voice broke through the roiling chaos. "What if we can't find it? What if we focus?" Rachel interrupted, the ocean pressing down on them like a weight. "We can't give in to despair." She reached for her friends, fingers brushing against Samantha's hand. But then, it slipped away, lost in the struggle of the depths. Rough currents twisted and turned, and the familiar gurgling laughter morphed into torturous wails. The figure's face loomed behind them, eyes glistening with menace and madness, not just a specter, but a phantom of their own fears manifesting wildly. "Just follow the light," Rachel urged, kicking harder, her limbs cold and heavy. But everything shifted. The pulsing glow darkened, enveloped by a sickly shadow. The very essence of freedom seemed to trap them more than it aimed to release them. Rachel felt her chest tighten, breath hitching. "What is this?" she thought, doubt creeping back, echoing off the walls of her mind. The woman's voice surged through the waves again, haunting and seductive. Embrace eternity. Surrender, and your pain will wash away never. Rachel shouted, summoning her will. She grasped Josh's hand tightly, their fingers weaving together in an anchor against the fear. We're not going to let you win. They were nearly there. The light flickered before them like a dying star, but its brightness now seemed tainted, shadows flickering on the edges. It's changing, Samantha cried, horror painting her features. As they advanced, the water erupted violently, surging upward like a sudden tide determined to swallow them whole. It felt as if the ocean became alive, shifting from a gentle caress into a feral beast ready to devour. Rachel could feel the presence of the entity growing heavier, an invisible weight pressing down on them. We have to push through, she shouted over the roar of the waves. And fueled by a primal instinct, they surged as one, three souls entwined in a shared fight against the darkness. But the moment they reached the center of the light, an excruciating pain took hold, shooting through Rachel like hot metal. Colors danced wildly around her, forming shapes that morphed and twisted into a hellish gallery of anguished faces, residents of the abyss, lost souls crying for liberation. Make it stop, Josh yelled, the anguish splintering his voice. But the shadows whirled around them, binding them tighter, whispering in the ear of Rachel's mind as if feeding off their fear. Join us, it's easier here. Then everything erupted into chaos. A frenzy of sound enveloped them, the echoes of their own cries lost in the roar of anger and despair. Fighting against currents that tugged at their limbs, Rachel struggled to stay afloat, to keep battling the pull of oblivion. With one last attempt, she screamed toward the dark figure lurking just out of reach, "You don't own us." But as the weight of despair bore down, it felt like the ocean itself was laughing, mocking their defiance. Just as the overwhelming tide threatened to drag them back, a sudden shimmer in the water caught Rachel's eye, something glinting just beneath the surface. Was it a way out? Or another trap? Instinct screamed that time was running out, the shadows were closing in fast. What's that? Samantha cried, pointing to the flash. Come on, swim, Rachel urged, knowing deep in her gut that whatever lay at the heart of it might just be the only way to challenge the creature lurking beyond the light. But as they surged towards that tantalizing glimmer, Rachel couldn't shake the sinking feeling that maybe, just maybe, they were swimming straight into a far darker fate than they could ever imagine. What lay beneath? Would they dare to discover the unseen truth, or remain chained to their fears forever? The water roared around them, a relentless monster alive with rage, and as Rachel, Josh, and Samantha surged toward that glimmer, every instinct screamed to turn back. Yet there was no turning back now. The shadows clawed at them, like icy fingers trying to drag them into the abyss. But the allure of the unidentified shimmer pushed them onward. You see that? Josh shouted, his voice almost swallowed by the cacophony. It's not just light, it's different. We have to grab it. Rachel's heart raced. Maybe it was salvation, or perhaps it was just another snare in a long series of traps laid by the depths. But she couldn't dwell on that now. They had fought too hard to give up. Straining every muscle, she propelled herself forward, senses heightened, as if the very ocean understood the battle within her. Just keep swimming. Samantha grunted through gritted teeth, the weight of hopelessness surging around her like a tide determined to make them drown. The light pulsed, beckoning like a heartbeat beneath the tumult, and Rachel felt an almost magnetic pull. With one final, desperate stroke, she reached for it, fingers brushing the cool surface of the water above the shimmer. The world around them seemed to freeze for a heartbeat, a tangle of darkness and light. Then everything erupted in an instant. The water beneath them erupted with a ferocity that sent a shock reverberating through their bodies. Rachel was flung upwards as a cold symphony of waves crashed around her. The glow enveloped her like a shimmering cocoon, blinding yet protective, at least for a breath. Rachel! Josh's voice was raw with panic, pulling her back to reality as she emerged gasping above the surface, shaking off the chaos of the depths. But instead of relief, she was met with an overwhelming sense of dread. They were not free. The oppressive tentacles of darkness remained coiling around their legs, and that mocking laughter lingered just beneath the surface. Looking around, her heart sank. The shimmer above them flickered, revealing the weighty shadows looming just out of reach, restless and insatiable. "Where's Samantha?" Rachel shouted, panic overtaking her as she scanned frantically. Josh's face paled as he searched the waters around them. "She was right with us," he yelled, the panic escalating in his voice. The tension thickened like fog, every second stretched painfully. The shadows writhed, and Rachel felt the water plummet, dragging her down once more. Suddenly, a piercing scream pierced through the chaos. It was a sound of unfiltered terror, raw and desperate, a sound that resonated from the very depth of their worst nightmares. Rachel's blood ran cold, and a lump lodged painfully in her throat. "Sam!" "No!" Josh yelled, his face twisted in horror as he reached for the dark water. Without thinking, Rachel dove back into the depths, an instinct born of survival and loyalty. She felt the cold, murky darkness envelop her like a shroud, and the glow she had chased vanished, replaced by an oppressive silence. Her hands searched frantically, desperation fueling each movement as visions of their shared laughter played in her mind. Could she really lose her friend? Tears streamed down her cheeks, freezing against her skin as she recalled their most cherished moments, now twisted into ephemeral memories. That when she noticed it, a darker shadow sliding through the water, larger than anything she had encountered before, gliding elegantly yet menacingly. Rachel's heart raced. "Please, Samantha," she whispered, the words mere echoes in the cacophonous silence. Then she saw something move, a flash of color, bright against the shadows. It was Samantha's hair, swirling below her like a tether to a fading dream. Rachel made a swift decision, propelling deeper into the darkness, hungry for answers and for her friend, fighting against the weight of despair that threatened to consume her. She would find Samantha, no matter the cost. But as she reached for the flashes of color, the darkness erupted around her, morphing into something grotesque, something she did not recognize. What? Had they awakened? What lurked beneath the surface, waiting for the moment of weakness to strike? In that breathless silence, Rachel understood they had crossed a threshold. No longer just victims of nature, they had become players in a game far beyond their comprehension. And as she dove even deeper into the heart of the abyss, the inky shadows whispered promises of despair, shaping this moment into a terrifying revelation. Not all who enter the dark emerge into light. But what awaited her in the depths? Would she reunite with Samantha, or discover the true monstrosity of the abyss's heart? Rachel's heart thundered in her ears, a wild echo against the stillness of the inky water. Fear coursed through her veins like ice, but the flicker of Samantha's hair fueled her determination. She reached out, fingers straining toward that fleeting glint of color. In this murky depth, even hope felt fragile, like a candle against a storm. The shadow lingered, twisting closer. Rachel could sense its malevolent presence more than she could see it. Was it a creature? A remnant of their shattered reality? Her breath quickened, bubbles escaping her lips, drifting away in cloudy trails as panic clawed at her throat. Still, adrenaline surged. She couldn't back down now. "Sam!" Rachel's voice, a broken gurgle, reverberated in the dark. She pressed deeper, determination overcoming dread. The water's frigid grip wrapped tighter, trying to pull her under, but she kicked fiercely, refusing to be swallowed. Suddenly, a jolt of movement surfaced ahead. It was Samantha. Her outline flickered in and out of sight, the pulse of her hair bobbing like a signal in the vastness. Rachel lunged toward it, every muscle screaming against the pressure of the depths. Then, shock stole her breath. Samantha's eyes, wide with terror, locked onto hers, but something wrapped around Samantha's waist, constricting like a serpent. It was a tendril, slick and dark, glistening menacingly in the watery void. Rachel's blood ran cold. This was not just a battle against the elements. They had disturbed something ancient, something that seized the forgotten and pulled it into the depths. "Hold on, Sam," Rachel shouted, her voice breaking through the waves of dread, desperation lacing her every word. She swam harder, reaching out, fingers grasping at the grasping tendril. In that instant, the darkness seemed to pulse, changing, shifting like a living thing. Shapes formed within it, grotesque and amorphous, whispering secrets in an unknown tongue that threatened to drown Rachel in terror. Each pulse morphed the shadows into faces, contorted in anguish. Was this the fate that awaited them? With renewed resolve, Rachel clawed at the tendril, feeling its chilling texture beneath her fingertips. "I'll get you out." She wouldn't lose her best friend. Not like this. Not to whatever hunted in the dark. The shadow recoiled in response, as if aware of Rachel's will. Samantha's terrified gaze flickered towards her, shouting something, but the water swallowed her words. With determination throbbing in her chest, Rachel pushed forward, grasping the cold tendril. Pulling against it, Samantha's body surged closer, drifting from the shadow's grasp, but darkness retaliated with a vengeance. The creature let out a growl, a sound that reverberated through the water like thunder, shaking the very walls of her mind. The pressure intensified, squeezing the breath from her lungs. "Yes, just a little more," Rachel cried, her heart pounding as adrenaline surged. She felt Samantha's hand slip into hers, warm and trembling. But relief was short-lived. The entity, enraged, unleashed its fury, powerful waves crashing around them, dragging Rachel back into the abyss. Suddenly, all was still. The shadows hung heavy like a fog, and the world outside faded into nothingness. Rachel and Samantha floated entrapped in an unreal silence that felt like a cruel trick, suffocating and heavy. Their eyes searched the yawning darkness for signs of the creature. And then it appeared, a ghastly visage rising like a nightmare, a face built from the darkest corners of their fears, its eyes gleaming with malevolent anticipation. That Rachel's chest tightened as that weight of dread solidified around her heart. Here, in this abyss of fears, one question screamed to life. Was it hunting them, or had they become part of the shadow's eternal game? As the creature drew closer, a horrifying realization sunk in. The game had only begun. Would they escape the depths, or would they be ensnared forever in the clutches of the darkness? An icy tingling crept over Rachel's skin as the dark visage loomed, closer than before, its grotesque features forming with a horrific clarity. She could almost feel the weight of its gaze, as though it were sifting through her very essence, peering into the corners of her mind where her deepest fears lay hidden. She swallowed hard, fighting back the urge to scream. "Samantha!" She exhaled, her voice fragile, barely making a ripple in the oppressive silence that surrounded them. Fear clenched her stomach like a vice. She had to believe that her friend was still trapped within sight, still reachable, but the tendril dragging Samantha deeper into the abyss throbbed rhythmically, like a heartbeat, as if it were alive and breathing. As the creature twisted and contorted in the depths, Rachel's mind raced with frenzied thoughts. What was it? What did it want? With every beat of her heart, it felt as if the darkness itself conspired against them, wrapping tighter, choking hope and drowning resolve. Samantha's voice finally broke through, a distant whisper that sent jolts of anguish through her chest. "Help me." Panic etched into her features, morphing into despair as the tendril's grip tightened. Rachel kicked mightily, reaching for her friend, feeling the tension in every muscle like a bowstring pulled too tight. She fought against the watery prison, but each movement seemed to provoke the creature even more, sending shockwaves through the dark water that slapped against her skin like icy fingers. The creature responded, an unsettling growl resonating from within the depths, a sound that reverberated in Rachel's bones. Terrifying visions flickered before her eyes, faces of lost souls which had succumbed to the darkness, their mouths frozen in screams that echoed long after their forms had faded. Rachel shut her eyes, a surge of rage spurring her to action. "Get away from her, you thing!" Rachel screamed, her voice raw and fervent, cutting through the oppressive gloom. With every ounce of strength left, she locked onto the tendril and yanked with all her might. The creature writhed in response, an angry thrash of shadow and despair, and suddenly, a surge of light pierced through the darkness. The brightness was blinding, a flash that illuminated the grotesque entity just long enough for Rachel to see it in horrid detail. It was a mass of writhing limbs and gnashing teeth, eyes like burning coals set deep in a rotting face. It was a conglomeration of all their fears made manifest. This momentary glimpse brought clarity. She focused on Samantha, pulling harder as panic rushed through her like wildfire. "Come on. I'm right here." But then the light began to fade, slipping away as quickly as it came, dragging the darkness back into dominance. Rachel felt the tendrils' grip loosen suddenly, only to tighten again in instant retaliation, like a predatory beast unwilling to let its prey escape. With a raw shout of resolve, she lunged forward. As her fingers brushed against Samantha's outstretched hand, the world around them dimmed further. Serenity faltered, as they slipped deeper into the nightmare, a cavern of despair and dread. Both girls locked eyes, clinging to the fleeting shimmer of hope in that darkness. But the pressure surged once more. Too late. Rachel's breath hitched. The creature lunged forward, aiming for them. Time slowed, grasping the air around them, spinning their fate into an uncertain dance. And then darkness enveloped them, swallowing the last remnants of light. Rachel felt herself spiraling down, the instinct to gasp battling the weight of the cold water pressing down. Was this the end? Or was something more sinister lurking even deeper in the abyss, waiting to claim them? Rachel's mind screamed, but the silence answered. This was merely the beginning. A game had begun, and the rules were about to change. What kind of hell awaited them in this haunting expanse that stretched endlessly? Would they uncover its twisted secrets, or were they destined to become a part of its eternal lore? A deafening silence replaced the chaos, thick and suffocating. Rachel's chest tightened as darkness draped over her like a heavy blanket. It pressed in on her, and she felt as if she were losing grasp on who she was, a fragment of a memory fading in the shadows. But somewhere within the depths of her mind, a spark of defiance ignited. "I want tea, let it take us," she said quietly to herself, forcing the words through the breathless void that swallowed her. Clenching her fists, she pushed back against despair, as if each movement fought against an unseen weight, dragging her further into the darkness. In that moment, the pressure around her shifted. It flickered, a pulse throbbing beneath the surface. Bubbles danced around her, dimly illuminated in a flicker of light that reminded her of Samantha's hair. Rachel focused on that flickering, a reminder of her friend, of their bond, and their fight to survive. "Sam, where are you?" she cried out, her voice reverberating in the silence. But the void offered nothing in return. Panic surged again, a cold rush that screamed of loss. With a newfound determination, Rachel swam deeper into the dark, each stroke persistent with purpose. She felt energy coiling inside her like a spring ready to snap, ready to explode. Then, she saw it. A shimmer, faint but unyielding, beckoned from the distance, a dim light that felt both inviting and dangerous. It swirled like a whirlpool, casting eerie reflections that danced with the shadows. "Stay with me, Sam," Rachel shouted, pushing herself forward. As she neared the glowing spot, an eerie laughter erupted around her, vibrating the water, filling the air with chilling taunts. "Join us," voices echoed, a cacophony of despair that clawed at her mind. Rachel clutched her heart. They weren't merely threats, they were ghosts whispering the reality of the abyss, creatures that fed on sorrow and fear. "Not today," she yelled against the despair, channeling it, letting it transform into anger. "I'm not afraid of you." With each stroke, visibility sharpened, and forms emerged from the shadows, twisted emotions made flesh, lost souls clawing at her with grotesque fingers. "I'm breaking free." But just then, a shadow lunged. It shot past, grabbing her ankle with formidable force. Rachel gasped but fought back, kicking hard. "Let me go," she screamed, but the entity pulled her deeper. Shade-like limbs twisted around her, tugging fiercely, and she felt the last remnants of hope drip away. Everything she believed was slipping through her fingers. Then, there was a familiar voice, Rachel. The sound was clear and unwavering, piercing through the madness. It was Samantha. Rachel felt a jolt of energy surge through her veins. "Sam, I'm coming." Gritting her teeth, she kicked harder, breaking free from the icy grip of the shadows. Rachel pushed through the darkness, fueled by the strength of their bond. With a fierce surge, she burst into the shimmering light, engulfed in a warm glow that washed over her like an unexpected embrace. She squinted against the brightness, looking for Samantha. And there she was, grasping desperately at a tendril that wrapped around her, a dark shadow closing in around her waist. "Hold on," Rachel yelled as she surged forward, grappling with the dark limb. The spectral laughter roared again, rising to a deafening crescendo as shadows writhed and twisted behind her, intent on dragging them back. With a primal howl, Rachel dove into the darkness and seized Samantha's wrist, pulling with every ounce of strength she had. "Fight it. We're getting out of this together." Their eyes met. Determination radiated between them, sending sparks of courage through the suffocating gloom. Finally, with a fierce yank, Rachel ripped Samantha free from the Shadow's clutches. But the darkness screamed back, a furious rush that swirled around them like a storm, thrashing and clawing. "Run!" Rachel shouted as they darted back toward the light, the warmth a siren call beckoning them home. The shadows howled, their cries capturing moments of horror that nearly drowned out their will to live. But they fought. Hand in hand, they swam toward that warm embrace where the light pulsed gently, promising safety, a chance to breathe again. And then, just when it felt like the shadows would drag them back into the abyss, they burst through the surface, gasping for air. The forest around them seemed almost surreal, but the woods had not swallowed them. They were free. "Did we make it?" Samantha wheezed, her hair mingling with the water as they splashed ashore, clutching each other tightly. Rachel nodded, choking back tears of relief. "We did. We beat them." As dawn broke, casting golden rays across the land, the lingering shadows slowly faded away. Rachel took a deep breath, the fresh air filling her lungs, tinged with the morning dew. They had faced the darkness and emerged. The horrors didn't own them. They had all made a choice to fight against despair. Now, the forest might still whisper secrets, but they wouldn't listen. They had regained their strength, each brand marked with the memory of survival. Later, as the sun climbed higher and the warmth wrapped around them like a promise of a new day, Rachel glanced at Samantha. "We'll remember this," she said, resolved. "And we'll keep each other safe. Always." As they made their way back home with renewed hearts, they stepped past those ancient trees knowing that whatever darkness loomed ahead, they would never face it alone again. And as the woods reclaimed their silence, they held the stories of terror and triumph, woven into the fabric of their lives, echoing not as curses, but as reminders of unbreakable bonds forged in the shadows. Now that they had returned, what tales would they tell? Remember, if you found this haunting story gripping, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't miss any of our next exclusive stories that will challenge your heart and mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Get ready for more chilling tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think happened next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Your voice matters in this community.